say politics, which I covered for years, is closer to comedy writing because that's inherently a comedy show on Capitol Hill every day.
Do you think artificial intelligence is cheating? JD,
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
So we met at Web Summit. Thank you, Web Summit.
Thank you, Web Summit.
Of course, big shout out. For those who don't know what you get up to, what is it you do on the New York Stock Exchange floor?
I'm a member of the media here at the New York Stock Exchange. It's the greatest financial institution in the world. I'm not just saying that because I'm lucky enough to be here every day. I am a reporter and on-air commentator, a host and anchor for TheStreet.com. I'm also a contributor at CBS News, so we cover the markets, the big trading trends, the big splashy AI stocks, all the way to the small kind of mom and pop shops and all those amazing entrepreneurs here and around the world who dream of entering the US markets. This is what it's all about. This is the heart of the financial seed going back so many years, and be able to be here every day it's a privilege I never take for granted.
Yeah, but that is a very impressive title. You do many things and wear many hats. How did you actually navigate yourself into a space where you now work for the New York Stock Exchange? Because if I'm being really honest, it's my second time here, but I thought it was very inaccessible from the outside in.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, they understandably feel that way because you quite literally cannot get into the New York Stock Exchange. They don't do tour groups anymore. They used to many decades ago, but at this point, it's a matter of already being here, having a guest pass, that type of thing for access. I started working down here for an old job in 2017, left to go to Washington, D.C. for coverage for 5 years, and my dream was to really come back and get some job that would bring me back onto the trading floor, this amazing community that I'm so lucky to be a part of.
Of course.
And, I think one of the big goals that the New York Stock Exchange would tell you is that even if it is closed to the public, they want this to be a transparent, open institution. And it is exactly that. This is an incredible institution here. But being able to peel back those layers, show what it's like behind the scenes, a bit of that point of view, to ring the bell twice a day here, to see the energy for the traders and the market makers, that's a really amazing part of the story I love to share with viewers on the outside.
I love that. And thank you for inviting me. Did you do a financial degree and then kind of start applying for jobs here, or was your route in quite different?
It was different from virtually all my other peers. I was an English major. My dream was to work in comedy television as a writer. So I always knew I wanted to be in TV. I just never thought journalism would be the pivot. But the universe,
and
as
also
you know,
financial journalism is very different from comedy writing. Or is it the same?
I would say politics, which I covered for years, is closer to comedy writing because that's inherently a comedy show on Capitol Hill every day. Financial news was just something, honestly, I picked up, and I'm not afraid to admit the things I don't know. And this is complicated stuff when you're talking markets and charts and technical analysts and earnings reports. It's not something that comes second nature to anybody.
And it's not something you're taught in school. So financial literacy is not a subject matter that you are taught from the beginning. So you have to go teach yourself. How do you teach yourself? How do you spend time learning? What are the resources that you're capturing, especially when you don't know something?
I almost every day am on the phone with people who are much smarter than I am. And I'm not afraid, like I said, to admit the things I don't know. I love taking analysts out for lunch or out for a cup of coffee and say, hey, I'm going to spend a half hour with you and ask you lots of silly questions. Explain these complicated things to me as if I'm a 5-year-old. And that helps my base of understanding. My role as a host, as an anchor, as a contributor, Sonya, is to help explain these really complicated topics in a way that's digestible.
Digestible, tiny, to the point. One thing that I'm picking up from you is that power of networking, the power of asking for help and building that community. What are your top tips when it comes to actually building out your network, especially when you're starting from a place of, I don't know, I have a dream, but that pipeline in between is really kind of filled with failure and obstacles and the unknown?
Everyone has to work with the skill set that most naturally suits them. For me, I've never been ashamed to walk into a room, shake someone's hand, introduce myself, and then that's your connection. In terms of past that, I try my best to say yes to everything. And that means like invitations. Hey, we're grabbing drinks after work. There's this event that we're going to, or this ball game that we're going to. Would you like to come? And as exhausted as you can be day to day, at the end of your work, at the end of the day, I always try and say yes to those things. That just increases your network more and more. And I also think of how grateful I am that doors have been opened for me. And anything I could ever do to open up a door for the next person who wants a shot or to experience the New York Stock Exchange is always a big priority for me as well.
Move here this way,
sure.
A little bit. Yeah. You must therefore get a lot of people in your DMs, emails, conversations, messages asking for help. What are the kind of messages that you would like to receive when someone is asking for your help versus just a standard, JD, I see you're on TV. I want to be on TV too. Can you help me?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I never mind when people reach out. I do my best to respond. I think it's a lot of questions on the journey. How did you get there? How did you get a job in television? How did you get to the New York Stock Exchange if you've never studied finance? And being able to just openly share my experience in a very honest, transparent way usually helps people. And I always think, like, it wasn't that long ago, Sonia, I was the person
Absolutely.
DMing other
Yeah,
people,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sending cold emails, most of which likely go unresponded. But I never forget that that was me really just a few years ago, longer than a few, not to date myself. But I know what that's like to be on that side of the equation. And many times I still am that guy.
Yeah.
To now get into the next room I would like to get into, or
Absolutely.
the next thing that advances something that I'm working towards. So, and sometimes you're the answerer to someone else's DM. Sometimes you're still the person who's sending that request to say, hey, I would love to pick your brain for a few minutes.
What are you excited about when it comes to the future of finance? What are some stocks, some shares, but also some businesses that really light up your brain when you're going home and flicking through your files and being like, hey, I need to think about what the next trend might be?
I mean, it's the obvious short answer is all things artificial intelligence, specifically the semiconductor stocks and those sectors. The technology company, this AI revolution we're in right now, we're talking so much about it for a reason, because it's a newly emerging technology that very few people understand, but it's driving so much of the growth here in the US stock market.
Absolutely.
And there's a reason we have the strongest economy here in the US relative to the rest of the world as we continue to climb ourselves out of the pandemic. But you know, we also love those base materials, those construction companies, the heart of the American economy, the small business owner, their dreams of entering the public markets. All of those things are really important. So I go home and I let myself go down wild rabbit holes of things that I need to learn, things that I need to teach myself. For instance, one of my assignments this weekend is all about the depths of our commercial real estate crisis that we're going through in the US.
And so you just go on Google or kind of a search engine of your choice and you type in, what is commercial real estate?
And I start to read like my favorite analyst notes at this point. So I'll turn to a Morgan Stanley or a Barclays and I'll see what have their top analysts written with regards to this particular story, in this case, commercial real estate. And I will take in as many sources of information as I can. I'll make phone calls with analysts, again, people much smarter than I am who could teach me the things. And then I kind of am coming up with my own JD, through a JD filter, my own point of view of all the information that I've learned as a journalist. And I've realized that is the role of a journalist. You have to be willing to learn all the things you don't know and then help explain to that next person. I always think if my mom has the question, then more than likely the viewer has the question as well.
That's a
And that's
great
who I
way
try
of
and
thinking
speak
about
to.
it. I mean, I have a question when it comes to artificial intelligence. Do you think artificial intelligence is cheating? Do you think that you're using it from a point of you don't actually then have to do the work or learn the words? Or to your point, there's a lot of individuals using AI tools to learn the top 5 points of this massive, 30-page reference point or research paper, but not really taking the time to go into the depths of it and understand what's happening.
I don't think it's for me to question any other person's individual use of a new technology. And I have no doubt in the long history of technology development, whenever something new and splashy and exciting comes along, there are those understandable voices of concern who say, well, is that kind of cheating? We used to do it this way and now you're making things so much easier. I have no reason to think the AI revolution is not very similar, but as with anything, it'll take some time, I think, to come up with the rules of the road. Where are the map? Where are the regulations? What should those regulations look like? It's such an exciting time. And I really am enthused by the fact that there's so much more about it we don't yet know. It means we definitely need to be cautious overall, but it's impossible to be here at the stock exchange. Look at how well this bull market, this S&P 500 has performed off the back of these artificial intelligence names. And the money tells us that there is such intense interest from investors into
and
this.
a gap when it comes to the kind of businesses and the problems that still can be solved. What are some businesses that excite you then? Are you allowed to share?
That's a good question. With regard to a journalist, I can talk about stocks. I cannot own stocks, so I do not own any individual kind of equities. I do own kind of ETF positions in my portfolio, which are a much bigger picture. But as a reporter, I cannot own, let's say, Amazon stock and then report on Amazon a few days later. That would be a clear conflict of interest. But those top, we call them the Magnificent Seven names. It's Apple, it's Amazon, Tesla, Nvidia, Meta. They are the most exciting, shiny companies for a reason. But I do love the story of a company like Boeing. I love the story of a company like Caterpillar or John Deere that build our construction equipment that are so crucial to our farmers in the heartland of the United States. They don't get the attention of the splashy companies, but they really drive the day-to-day economy, the reality for so many Americans. How about the car companies that Americans are driving to get themselves to work every day.
And there's a lot of cars
And there's
in this massive country.
It is
I mean,
big.
taking a step back, I can see your passion. I can see the way that you've navigated your career. How do you take time to rest and not be overwhelmed with content, consumption of media, conversations you're having, the fact you then have to go and execute, and also then you have to show up to a beautiful place like the New York Stock Exchange, but also it can be quite overstimulating.
Of course. What was that word? Rest? I'm not
Rest.
familiar with it,
Rest.
if I'm being honest.
How
but
do you not burn out?
That
How
does
do
happen
you,
sometimes.
Or how do you just take a step back to let your brain take in all the conversation, all the information, and just kind of process it?
Try and quiet the brain a little bit, which is my biggest challenge, and I find the biggest challenge for a lot of reporters. A lot of people in newsrooms, right? We tend to be kind of type A, deadline driven. We like to be careful preparers of the
Yes.
work. We love planning and preparation. For me personally, I love to take the dog upstate, out to Jersey, go hiking, leave the phone at home, believe it or not. I do that from time to time, and just spend time kind of hiking or outside in nature. That's a wonderful disconnect. I'm also a big music festival fan.
Oh, wow.
So when I'm at a concert and I'm deep in the crowd for one of my favorite artists, the last thing I'm thinking of, respectfully, is what NVIDIA stock has done
So
the
who
day
is
before.
one of your favorite artists?
Foo Fighters. I've seen
Foo
them several
Fighters,
times.
okay.
They're coming here to Citi Field. They'll be doing 2
And
shows
you've
in New
got
York
that
this
sorted.
summer. Yeah.
We are in New York. What are your, as someone who is born and bred in this city, what do you think individuals should be seeing, eating, doing when they are visiting?
Oh man, that is a great question. Well, I'll start with the financial district. Spend time in the heart of the city. This is the oldest part of New York City down here. Understand and be willing to take a tour. I love taking tours when I travel to other places because you learn things you wouldn't find
Absolutely.
through Google. I encourage people to do that as well. Find out that the history of Lower Manhattan is so fascinating. People love seeing Broadway shows, and I'm born and raised in the area, and I still go see Broadway shows. So absolutely take advantage of the live theater, the live music, the things that we have here. And honestly, my number one piece of advice, just wander. Just get lost. This is the most amazing walking city I've ever seen in the world, and I still will spend time week to week just putting in my AirPods and walking for miles. It's the most amazing place to do that. And you never know what coffee shop you discover, what bar you discover, a cool piece of art you would never know was there otherwise. That's my favorite thing to do in New York.
What I'm really taking away from you is be curious. It sounds like you've been curious since you were a student, then even navigating career, taking a career from, English major to Washington to the New York Stock Exchange, constantly learning and giving yourself that time to say, I don't know what I don't know, but how do I go and find that answer? What is the one thing you've learned about yourself since you have been working at the stock exchange, but also been running your own show with the street?
I think it's exactly that. I think I've been pleasantly surprised as I've become an adult and continued on in my career, the degree to which I do love to learn. And if I don't know something, it kind of bothers me. Not in like an overly competitive way, but I say, oh man, the excitement of learning that thing, being able to explain it simply. Right? One of my favorite phrases is, if you don't know it, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. And so I love being able to take these big, dense, weedy, complicated topics on policy on Capitol Hill, executive orders from the president, what's moving a stock in the stock market. And if I could explain it simply to my mother or my friends in 30 seconds, that means I've mastered the basics of that story. That thing, that it just drives me, it motivates me. And I see that reflected when viewers, readers, people on social media say, dude, thank you for explaining that. I've seen the headlines. I've had no idea what that means, but now I do because you made me
Absolutely.
understand it in an
Made it
approachable
easy.
way. I love that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
When
you.
Thank you. When people want to connect with you, how and where can they find you?
On all social media at JD_Durkin. You could find me. I'm trying to be as active as possible on all the platforms. We talk about this, the
All
challenge
the time.
of being a content creator, but I'm on social.
And a journalist.
And
a business person.
On top of everything else, I do my best to answer DMs from
Thank you.
people. So please reach out and say hello.
What flag is this one?
This is the New York State flag,
Oh.
and that further one is the New York City flag, I believe,
You have flags?
for each state.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All the 50 states have their own flags. Some are awesome. We have some like amazing state flags. Some are kind of old school. The original colonies tend to have kind of older school, kind of more generic logos.
Oh, wow.
And then like South Carolina's got the palmetto tree on it and a vector outline. Some are amazing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. The New Mexico flag is my favorite. It's this big yellow number with this beautiful red design in the
nice.
middle. Yeah.